You're finished! Commander Victor Hale's voice detonated across the briefing room. His face crimson, veins bulging, fingers stabbing toward Elena Reyes. I'm removing you from this operation right now. You don't belong here. You never did. 20 elite operators froze, watching him corner the small support officer against the wall. His hand moved, not quite touching her but close enough to threaten. You think regulations protect you? I am the regulation here. Elena didn't move, didn't speak, just held his furious stare with those dark, impossibly calm eyes. The silence stretched like a wire about to snap. Someone whispered, "Commander, maybe—" "Shut up!" Hale roared. Then Elena's voice came, quiet, steady, lethal. "Are you done, Commander?" And in that moment, everything changed. Before we continue, please subscribe to our channel and watch this story until the end. Comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far this story has traveled. The tension in the room thickened. Commander Victor Hale stood 6'3", decorated with medals that told stories of valor most men only dreamed about. Delta Force, 3 tours, a reputation that preceded him into every room he entered. When he spoke, people listened. When he commanded, people obeyed. But Elena Reyes just stood there, 28 years old, 5'5", maybe 120 pounds soaking wet. Her uniform looked almost too big on her frame, support staff badge clearly visible on her collar. "I said you're finished." Hale's voice dropped lower, more dangerous. "Do I need to have security escort you out?" Captain Marcus Webb, one of the senior operators, shifted uncomfortably. "Commander, maybe we should—" "Stay out of this, Webb." Hale didn't take his eyes off Elena. "This is about competence, about whether someone belongs in an elite unit, and she doesn't." Elena tilted her head slightly. "What exactly have I done wrong, Commander?" The question hung in the air. Simple, direct. Hale's face reddened. "You want a list? Fine. You're slow in drills. You question protocols. You don't engage with the team. You sit in corners taking notes like some kind of observer," Elena finished quietly. "Liability," he bit off the word. "This is a combat unit, not a typing pool. I don't care what strings you pulled to get assigned here, but I'm pulling the plug. Now." Lieutenant Sarah Chen, the unit's intelligence officer, glanced at her tablet, then at Elena. Something flickered in her expression. Confusion, recognition maybe, but she stayed silent. Elena nodded slowly. "I see." "Good, then we understand each other." Hale turned toward the door. "Webb, get her clearance revoked. I want her off this base by—" "Commander Hale." Elena's voice hadn't changed pitch. Still soft, still steady, but something in it made him stop. "I'm not leaving." The room went absolutely silent. Hale spun around. "Excuse me?" "I said I'm not leaving." Elena's hands stayed relaxed at her sides. No defensive posture, no aggression, just calm. "Not until my assignment is complete." "Your assignment?" Hale laughed, sharp, bitter. "Your assignment is whatever I tell you it is. And right now, it's to get the hell off my base." "That's not how chain of command works, Commander." Elena's eyes never left his. "You can make a request, but you can't unilaterally remove personnel without cause." Marcus Webb cleared his throat. "She's technically correct, sir. We'd need to file formal—" "I don't care about technicalities," Hale's voice rose. "I care about operational readiness, and she's compromising it." "How?" Elena asked. The simplicity of the question threw him. "What? How am I compromising operational readiness? Specifically?" Hale's jaw worked. "You failed the obstacle course." "I completed it within acceptable parameters." "Barely, but within parameters," Elena continued. "What else?" "Your marksmanship scores are mediocre. They meet minimum requirements for support personnel." "Minimum isn't good enough." "Then change the requirements, Commander." Elena's tone remained infuriatingly even. But until you do, I'm qualified to be here. The other operators watched this exchange like spectators at a tennis match, back and forth, Hale getting angrier, Elena getting nothing. No emotion, no reaction, just facts delivered in that quiet voice. It was driving him insane. You know what your problem is? Hale stepped closer, invading her space. You think you're smart. You think you can hide behind regulations and paperwork. But out there, he gestured toward the window, toward the desert beyond. Paperwork doesn't matter. Strength matters. Skill matters. And you don't have either. Maybe you're right, Elena said. The admission seemed to catch him off guard. What? Maybe I don't belong here. Maybe I am a liability. She paused. But that's not your decision to make alone, is it? Hale's eyes narrowed. Are you threatening me? I'm stating a fact. If you want me removed, file the paperwork. Go through proper channels. But until then, I'm part of this unit. She glanced around the room. Whether you like it or not. For a moment, Hale looked like he might physically throw her out. His hands clenched into fists. His breathing quickened. The vein in his temple throbbed visibly. Then he smiled. Cold. Predatory. Fine. You want to stay? You'll stay. But I'm going to make every single day here a living hell for you. By the time I'm done, you'll be begging to leave. He leaned in close enough that only she could hear his next words. I break people like you for breakfast. Elena met his stare. Then I guess we'll see who breaks first, Commander. The next morning, Elena arrived at the training yard at 0500 hours. The sun hadn't risen yet. The Nevada desert was still cold, that brief window before the heat became unbearable. She wasn't alone. Commander Hale stood in the center of the yard, arms crossed, waiting. Behind him, an obstacle course had been set up. Not the standard one, something different, harder. Reyes, his voice carried across the empty space. Glad you could join us. Elena approached. No other operators were present, just her and Hale in the pre-dawn darkness. What's this? She asked. Special training, personalized, just for you. Hale gestured at the course. You said you meet minimum requirements. Let's test that claim. Unless you'd rather pack your bags right now? Elena studied the setup. Walls higher than regulation. Rope climbs with no safety lines. Crawl sections filled with actual barbed wire, not the rubber-coated training version. When do we start? She asked. Now. No warm-up. No preparation time. Hale hit the stopwatch and pointed. Elena ran. The first wall loomed, 12 feet of smooth concrete. She hit it at full speed, fingers finding purchase on edges that barely existed. Her muscles screamed. This was higher than anything in standard training, but she pulled herself up, swung over the top, dropped to the other side. Faster, Hale shouted. My grandmother moves faster. The rope climbed next. No knots, just raw rope stretching 30 feet up. Elena's hands burned as she pulled herself upward, foot over foot, using technique over strength. At the top, she tagged the marker and descended. Pathetic! You call that climbing? The barbed wire section, real metal, real edges. Elena dropped and crawled, keeping her body flat, moving with controlled precision. A barb caught her sleeve. Ripped fabric. She kept moving. When she finally crossed the finish line, Hale was already shaking his head. 23 minutes. Know what the unit average is? 15. You're not even close. Elena caught her breath. What's the minimum passing time? Hale's expression darkened. 25. Then I passed. He bit back whatever he was going to say. Again, do it again. Commander, that's an order, Reyes. Again. So she did it again. And again after that. By the fourth run, her hands were bleeding. By the fifth, she could barely grip the rope. But she kept going, kept finishing, never quit, never gave Hale the satisfaction of seeing her break. At breakfast, whispers followed Elena through the cafeteria. Word had spread about the pre-dawn training session, about Hale's personal attention to the quiet support officer. "I heard he ran her through the course 6 times, someone muttered. "She completed all 6. "Yeah, but barely. He's trying to wash her out." Elena sat alone at a corner table, eating mechanically. Her hands shook slightly as she lifted her fork. Exhaustion radiated from every movement. Lieutenant Sarah Chen approached with her tray. "Mind if I sit?" Elena glanced up. "It's a free country." Sarah settled across from her. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Sarah said quietly, "That course Hale set up, that wasn't standard protocol." "I noticed. You could file a complaint." "Could I?" Elena's tone suggested she didn't believe that would accomplish anything. Sarah studied her. "Why are you really here, Reyes? You don't act like support staff. You don't talk like support staff. And you sure as hell don't endure abuse like support staff." Elena met her gaze. "What do you think I am, Lieutenant?" "I think," Sarah paused, "I think you're testing us, not the other way around." The words hung between them. Elena's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Acknowledgement, warning maybe. "That's an interesting theory," Elena said finally. "Is it true? Does it matter?" Elena pushed her tray away. "Right now, I'm exactly what my badge says I am, a support officer assigned to this unit. Everything else is speculation." Sarah opened her mouth to respond, but Captain Marcus Webb appeared at their table. "Reyes, Commander wants you in briefing room 3, immediately." Elena stood without hesitation. "Thank you, Captain." As she walked away, Sarah called after her. "Elena," she turned back, "watch your 6." Elena nodded once, then disappeared through the cafeteria doors. Briefing room 3 was empty, except for Commander Hale in a single chair positioned in the center. Interrogation style. "Sit," Hale ordered. Elena sat. Hale circled her slowly. "I've been reviewing your file. You know what's interesting? There's almost nothing in it. Basic training records. Assignment history that's vague at best. No distinguished service. No commendations. No anything. Support staff don't usually earn commendations, Commander." "No, but they usually have more detailed histories, transfer reasons, performance reviews. Yours is almost—" He leaned down close to her ear. "Sanitized." Elena stared straight ahead. "I don't know what you want me to say. I want you to tell me who you really are." "I'm Elena Reyes, support officer, assigned to this unit 3 weeks ago." "Bullshit." Hale slammed his hand on the table beside her. She didn't flinch. "Nobody acts like you do. Nobody endures what you endured this morning without breaking, unless they're trained for it, unless they're used to it. Maybe I'm just stubborn, or maybe your intelligence, CIA, maybe DIA, some spook checking up on my unit, looking for problems that don't exist." Elena turned to look at him directly. "If I were intelligence commander, would I tell you?" The question threw him. His circling stopped. "Here's what I think," Hale continued after a beat. "I think you're a plant. Someone sent you here to undermine my authority, to make me look bad, to gather dirt for some political agenda back in Washington. That's quite a conspiracy theory. Is it? You show up out of nowhere. You don't act normal. You question everything. He trailed off, searching for words. "You don't belong, and I'm going to prove it." "How?" Hale smiled. "Live fire exercise. Tomorrow. Full combat simulation with actual rounds. You'll be part of it. On my team. Directly under my command." Elena's expression didn't change. "Understood. You scared, Reyes?" "Should I be?" "If you're smart." Hale straightened. "Dismissed. And Reyes, get some sleep tonight. Tomorrow's going to be intense." That evening, Elena sat in her quarters, a small room barely larger than a cell. Standard issue bed, standard issue desk. No personal effects except a locked footlocker she never opened in front of anyone. Someone knocked. She opened the door to find Marcus Webb standing there, looking uncomfortable. "Can I come in?" Elena stepped aside. Marcus entered, glanced around the sparse room, then turned to face her. "I'm going to be direct," he said. "Hale's planning something tomorrow. Something dangerous. The live fire exercise. It's not standard procedure. He's designing it specifically to put you in impossible situations, to make you fail. Publicly." Elena nodded slowly. "And you're telling me this because it's wrong." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Look, Hale's a good commander in many ways. Tactical genius, brave under fire, but he's got blind spots. And you've triggered every single one of them. Why? Because you won't break. Because you won't quit. Because you're," he struggled for the right word, "different. And Hale doesn't do well with things he can't control or understand. What do you want me to do, Captain? Back down, take a medical leave, anything. Just get out before tomorrow." Elena walked to her window, looked out at the darkening desert. "I appreciate the warning, Marcus, I really do, but I can't leave." "Why not?" She turned back to him. "Because if I leave, he wins. And men like Hale need to learn they can't bully people out of positions just because they don't fit some preconceived notion of what belongs. This isn't about principles, Elena. This is about survival. Hale's exercises have put people in the hospital before. Then maybe someone should have stopped him before now." Marcus studied her for a long moment. "You're not going to back down, are you?" "No," he sighed. "Then watch yourself tomorrow. Trust your instincts. And if things go sideways," he paused, "remember that not everyone in this unit agrees with Hale's methods." After Marcus left, Elena sat on her bed and stared at her hands. The bandages covering her rope burns. The bruises forming on her shins from the obstacle course. She could leave. Take medical leave. File complaints. Let the system handle Hale through official channels. But that wasn't why she was here. She was here to see what men like Hale did when they thought no one was watching. When they thought they had complete control. When they thought authority and rank gave them permission to break people who didn't fit their worldview. She was here to see if this unit, this supposedly elite unit, was built on genuine excellence or just on fear and intimidation. Tomorrow would answer that question. Elena lay back on her bed but didn't sleep. Outside, the desert night stretched endlessly, silent, patient, waiting for dawn. The live fire exercise began at 0600 hours. 12 operators divided into 3 teams: red, blue, gold. Elena was assigned to gold team, Commander Hale's team. The scenario: urban combat simulation. Abandoned mock town built for training. Real ammunition, real stakes. Rules are simple, Hale briefed them. Rubber rounds for training safety, but treat every shot as lethal. Objective: secure the central building. Eliminate all hostile forces. Standard search and clear protocols. His eyes found Elena in the group. Everyone pulls their weight, no passengers. The teams dispersed to their starting positions. Gold team, Hale, Elena, and 2 other operators named Rodriguez and Patterson took the western approach. "Reyes," Hale's voice came through the comms. "You're on point." Point meant first through every door, first exposure to any threat, the most dangerous position. "Copy," Elena said simply. They moved through the mock streets. Elena led, weapon ready, scanning corners and windows. Behind her, she could feel Hale's presence, watching, waiting for her to screw up. The first building loomed ahead, 2 stories, multiple entry points. Standard clearing procedure would be to stack up, count down, breach together. "Reyes," Hale's voice crackled. "Breach, now." No stack, no countdown, just her. Elena hesitated for half a second, then moved. She hit the door fast, weapon up, scanning left and right. Empty room, but movement upstairs, footsteps, multiple hostiles. "Contact second floor," she reported, "then clear it." Hale's tone left no room for argument. Elena ascended the stairs, each step calculated. At the top, a hallway stretched left and right. 3 doors, all closed. "Which way?" Rodriguez whispered behind her. Elena gestured left, started forward. The first door exploded open. Hostile emerged, weapon raised. Elena fired twice, center mass. The hostile went down, paint rounds marking hits. But 2 more hostiles appeared from the right door. Crossfire. Exactly the kind of ambush that should have been avoided with proper team coverage. Elena dropped and rolled, firing as she moved. Got 1 hostile. The second clipped her shoulder. Paint burst, marking a hit. Simulated wound. "You're hit, Reyes." Hale's voice held satisfaction. "That's a casualty. Your combat ineffective for the next 5 minutes." Elena backed against the wall, weapon lowered per protocol. Simulated wound meant she couldn't engage, could only observe, and she observed plenty. Hale moved up with Rodriguez and Patterson. They cleared the remaining rooms with textbook precision, perfect communication, flawless execution. This was how it should have been done from the start. This was how it would have been done if Hale hadn't deliberately put Elena in an impossible situation. "Building secured," Hale announced over comms, then privately to Elena. "That's 1 casualty on your record. Care to make it 2? Elena didn't respond, just waited out her 5-minute penalty. The exercise continued. Gold Team advanced toward the central objective building, larger, more complex, more opportunities for things to go wrong. "Reyes, you're active again." Hale checked his watch. "Rear guard this time." Rear guard meant watching their backs, protecting the team from attacks from behind. Critical role that required constant vigilance. They entered the central building, a warehouse-style structure with catwalks in multiple levels. Perfect ambush territory. Gold Team moved through the ground floor. Blue Team was supposed to be approaching from the east. Red Team from the north. Coordination was key. Then gunfire erupted from above. Red Team, engaging hostiles on the second level. "Move up," Hale ordered. "Support Red Team." Gold Team rushed toward the stairs. Elena stayed back, maintaining rear security as ordered. She scanned the entrance they'd just come through, the windows, the dark corners. Something felt wrong. Movement, left side, ground level. Hostile emerging from concealment. Not part of the scenario. This was Blue Team, supposed to be friendly, but they were aiming at Gold Team's backs. "Contact left," Elena shouted. "Blue Team, hold fire. Friendly." Blue Team fired anyway. Paint rounds hit Patterson in the back. Then Rodriguez. "What the hell?" Rodriguez spun around. "Blue Team, cease fire. We're friendly." But Blue Team kept advancing, weapons up, not stopping. Elena's mind raced. This wasn't right. This wasn't protocol. Blue Team should have identified them, should have communicated, unless this was part of Hale's plan. "Reyes!" Hale's voice barked. "Suppress Blue Team. That's an order." Elena raised her weapon but didn't fire. "Commander, they're friendly forces. We can't. They're hostile for this scenario. Fire." "That's not. Fire!" In that moment, Elena understood. Hale had changed the exercise parameters without briefing everyone. Blue Team thought they were engaging hostiles. Gold Team thought Blue was friendly. The confusion was intentional, and Elena was caught in the middle. She could fire on Blue Team, follow Hale's orders, but potentially escalate a dangerous situation where operators were firing on each other without proper safeguards. Or she could refuse, directly disobey a commanding officer's orders during a live exercise. Either choice would be used against her. "Reyes, I gave you an order." Elena lowered her weapon. "No, sir." The warehouse went silent. Every operator stopped, stared. "What did you say?" Hale's voice dropped to lethal quiet. "I said no, sir. I won't fire on friendly forces without proper verification of hostile status. That's basic rules of engagement." Hale crossed the distance between them in 3 strides, got in her face. You just refused a direct order during a combat exercise. I prevented a friendly fire incident during an exercise with inadequate safety protocols. That's insubordination. That's following proper ROE. Elena's voice never rose, never wavered. You changed scenario parameters without proper briefing. You created a situation where operators couldn't distinguish friend from foe. That's dangerous and against regulation. Around them, the other operators were watching. Some looked confused, others looked uncomfortable. Marcus Webb stood with Red Team on the catwalk above, and his expression was dark. Hale's face had gone crimson. You're finished. Done. I'm having you court-martialed for... For what? Elena interrupted. For following established rules of engagement? For prioritizing operator safety? For refusing to participate in a scenario that violated multiple training protocols? You don't get to decide what violates protocol. Neither do you, Commander. Elena's eyes never left his. Not alone. Not without oversight. Not without checks and balances. The warehouse had gone absolutely silent. Every single operator was frozen, watching this confrontation unfold. Hale's hand moved toward his sidearm, not drawing it, just touching it, a gesture of dominance, of threat. You think you're clever, he said quietly. You think you can hide behind regulations and procedure, but I'm going to destroy you. I'm going to make sure you never work in any military capacity ever again. I will... Commander Hale. A new voice cut through the tension. Everyone turned. A man in civilian clothes stood at the warehouse entrance. Late 50s, weathered face, eyes that missed nothing. He wore no rank insignia, no identification, but something about his presence demanded immediate attention. Sir, Hale snapped to attention. This is a closed training exercise. You need to... I need to do nothing, Commander. The man walked forward slowly. But you need to stand down. Immediately. Who the hell are you? The man pulled out credentials. Colonel Richard Thornton, Defense Intelligence Agency. I'm here to observe, and apparently to intervene. The blood drained from Hale's face. DIA? I wasn't notified of any. That's because you weren't supposed to know. Thornton's gaze swept the assembled operators. This unit has been under evaluation for the past 3 weeks. Assessment of tactical capability, yes, but more importantly, assessment of leadership integrity and operational culture. He let those words sink in. Then he looked directly at Elena. Chief Petty Officer Reyes, you can drop the cover now. The words hung in the air like a live grenade. Chief Petty Officer Reyes, not support staff, not some random assignment, Chief Petty Officer. Elena straightened slowly. Her entire demeanor shifted, not dramatically but enough. The quiet, deferential posture melted away. What replaced it was something else entirely. Authority, confidence, the bearing of someone who'd earned rank through blood and skill, not paperwork. Sir, she nodded to Colonel Thornton. Hale looked between them, his face cycling through confusion, anger, disbelief. What the hell is going on? Thornton gestured to Elena. Chief Reyes, would you like to explain, or should I? Elena turned to face the assembled operators, all of them staring, weapons lowered, the exercise forgotten. My name is Elena Reyes, Chief Petty Officer, Naval Special Warfare Development Group, SEAL Team 6. Her voice carried across the warehouse, no longer soft, no longer hesitant. Clear, commanding. I was assigned to this unit 3 weeks ago under cover as support staff. My mission? Evaluate operational readiness and leadership integrity. Bullshit, Hale spat. You're 5'0". You failed half the drills. I performed exactly at the level expected of support personnel. Elena cut him off. Nothing more, nothing less. That was the point, Commander, to see how you treated someone you perceived as weak, as lesser, as not belonging. Marcus Webb spoke from the catwalk. The obstacle courses, The harassment, the impossible scenarios. That was all a test, Elena confirmed, and Commander Hale failed spectacularly. Hale's hands clenched into fists. You set me up. This whole thing was designed to make me look bad. No, Commander. Thornton stepped forward. This whole thing was designed to see who you really are when you think no one's watching. When you think you have absolute power. When you think rank gives you permission to break people. I was maintaining standards. You were abusing authority. Elena's tone didn't rise, but the words hit like hammer blows. 6 unauthorized training sessions before dawn. Modified obstacle courses that violated safety protocols. Public humiliation. Isolation tactics. Creating no-win scenarios designed not to train, but to destroy. She paused. That's not leadership, Commander. That's bullying. Rodriguez, still marked with paint rounds from the botched exercise, lowered his weapon completely. Holy shit, she's really SEAL Team 6? Verified, Thornton said. Chief Reyes has been with DevGru for 4 years. 2 deployments, specialist in close quarters combat and tactical assessment. She's forgotten more about special operations than most people in this room will ever learn. Sarah Chen's expression shifted from shock to something like vindication. I knew something was off. The way you moved, the way you observed everything. You weren't out of place. You were gathering intelligence. Every interaction, Elena confirmed, every training session, every conversation, documented, analyzed, assessed. Hale's face had gone from red to pale. This is entrapment. You can't. We can, and we did. Thornton pulled out a tablet. Commander, you're being removed from command effective immediately, pending full investigation into multiple violations of... No. Hale's voice dropped to something dangerous. No, you don't get to do this. I've given 20 years to this military, 20 years of service, of sacrifice, and you're going to destroy my career over some politically correct witch hunt? This isn't political, Commander. Elena stepped closer. This is about accountability, about whether the military creates leaders or tyrants. You sanctimonious little... Hale moved fast, closing the distance, finger jabbing toward her face. You think you're better than me? You think 3 weeks of playing victim makes you some kind of hero? Elena didn't back up, didn't flinch. I think I did my job, and you revealed exactly who you are when given unchecked power. I protected this unit. I maintained standards. I made sure only the best. You terrorized anyone who didn't fit your narrow definition of strength, Elena interrupted. You mistook cruelty for discipline. You confused abuse with leadership. And when someone challenged you, even quietly, even respectfully, you tried to destroy them. The other operators were starting to shift, uncomfortable, some looking at Hale differently now, seeing him through new eyes. Patterson spoke up quietly. Commander, that live fire scenario, you really did change the parameters without briefing everyone, didn't you? Hale spun toward him. That was tactical unpredictability. Real combat doesn't come with perfect information. Real combat also doesn't have friendly forces firing on each other because their commander deliberately created chaos, Marcus said from above. His voice was hard, disappointed. Sir, I've followed you for 3 years. Trusted your judgment, but this, he gestured at the scene below, this isn't acceptable. You're all turning on me? After everything I've done? Hale's voice rose. I built this unit. I made you elite. And this is how you repay me? By believing some infiltrator who lied to your faces for 3 weeks? She was doing her job, Sarah said firmly. You were abusing yours. Hale laughed, bitter. Sharp. Unbelievable. One woman comes in, plays the victim, and suddenly I'm the villain. This is exactly what's wrong with the military now. Going soft, prioritizing feelings over readiness, letting standards drop because we're afraid of hurting someone's... Commander Hale. Thornton's voice cut through like ice. Stop talking. You're making this worse for yourself. Worse? How could it be worse? You've already decided to crucify me. We've decided to hold you accountable, Elena corrected. There's a difference. Hale turned on her with pure venom. You don't know the first thing about accountability. You show up, hide who you are, manipulate situations to get the results you want. That's not honor. That's deception. It's assessment. Elena's calm never cracked. And you failed. Because the test was rigged. The test was fair. You just didn't like the results. Hale stepped even closer, now inches from her face. You want to talk about fair? Fine. Let's be fair. You say you're SEAL Team 6. Prove it. Right here. Right now. Elena tilted her head slightly. How? Hand to hand. No weapons. Just you and me. Let's see if you're really as elite as you claim. Or if this is all just smoke and mirrors. The warehouse went dead silent. Thornton moved forward. Commander, that's not... It's fair, isn't it? Hale didn't take his eyes off Elena. She gets to test me. I get to test her. Unless she's afraid. Unless all this talk about SEAL Team 6 is just cover for a desk jockey who got assigned a fancy mission. Elena studied him, read the anger in his eyes, the desperation, the need to dominate, to win, to prove something. Commander, she said quietly, you don't want to do this. Why? Afraid you'll lose? Afraid you'll get hurt? Hale smiled. Predatory. Big words from someone who barely cleared a rope climb. That was when I was playing support staff, Elena said. I'm not playing anymore. Then prove it, Marcus called down from above. Commander, this is insane. You can't just... Stay out of this, Webb, Hale barked. Then back to Elena. What's it going to be, Chief? You going to hide behind regulations? Or are you going to back up all this talk with action? Thornton stepped between them. Both of you, stand down. This isn't how we handle... Sir, with respect, Elena said, not looking away from Hale. Maybe it is. Maybe Commander Hale needs to understand something, needs to learn a lesson he's been avoiding for years. Which is, Thornton asked, that strength isn't about size. Authority isn't about fear, and underestimating people because they don't fit your expectations. Elena's voice hardened. That's how you end up on your back wondering what happened. Hale's smile widened. Big talk. Let's see if you can deliver. Last chance, Commander, Elena warned. Walk away. Accept the investigation. Let the system work. Or what? You'll hurt me? You think you can hurt me? Hale laughed. I've survived deployments in hellholes you've probably never heard of. I've faced down enemies who make you look like a child playing soldier. You don't intimidate me. Elena sighed, looked at Thornton. Sir, permission to demonstrate proper hand-to-hand combat protocols? Thornton studied both of them. The tension, the audience, the moment spinning beyond anyone's control. Finally, reluctantly, he nodded. Make it quick. And Chief, don't permanently damage him. We still need him for the investigation. Understood, sir. Hale immediately shifted into a fighting stance. Feet wide, hands up, classic aggressive posture. Big, powerful, confident. Elena just stood there, relaxed, hands at her sides. No stance, no obvious preparation. You're not even going to defend yourself? Hale mocked. I don't need to. That did it. Hale lunged. He was fast, credit where it was due. 20 years of training, real combat experience. He came in with a straight jab followed by a hook, combination punches designed to overwhelm with power and speed. Elena moved, not dramatically, not with flashy techniques, just moved. She slipped the jab by millimeters, redirected the hook with the lightest touch, and suddenly Hale was off balance, his momentum carrying him past her. She didn't strike, didn't counter, just let his own aggression work against him. He recovered, spun back, more careful now, circling. Not bad, he admitted, but dodging isn't winning. Neither is attacking wildly, Elena replied. Hale feinted left, then drove in with a tackle. Full commitment. using his size and strength advantage. If he got her to the ground, his weight would be overwhelming. Elena waited until the last possible second. Then she wasn't there. Hale crashed into empty air, stumbled, caught himself, turned to find Elena behind him, still relaxed, still calm. The operators watching began to understand. They were seeing something they'd probably never see again. Elite-level combat mastery. Not flashy, not showy, just perfect understanding of movement, timing, positioning. Elena was reading Hale like a book. Every attack before it came, every movement telegraphed. She could have ended this in seconds, but she was drawing it out, making a point. "Come on, Commander," she said quietly. "Show me that strength you talked about, that elite standard. Show me why I don't belong." Hale's breathing had quickened, frustration building. He wasn't landing anything, wasn't even getting close. And every second that passed, he looked more foolish, more outclassed. He switched tactics, dirty fighting, went for her eyes with a finger strike. Elena caught his hand midair. Her grip, small hand around his large wrist, somehow stopped him completely. He pulled back, couldn't break free. "Rules of engagement, Commander," she said. "Always matter." She released him. He stumbled back. Rodriguez whispered to Patterson, "Holy shit, she's toying with him." Patterson nodded, eyes wide. "He's got 80 pounds on her, and it doesn't matter at all." Hale attacked again, more desperate now, wider swings, bigger commitments, the discipline breaking down under frustration and embarrassment. Elena still hadn't thrown a single strike, just defense, just movement, just making him look incompetent in front of everyone. It was brilliant, brutal, humiliating in a way that physical damage never could be. "Stand still and fight," Hale shouted. "Why? You're doing all the fighting for both of us." Something snapped in Hale, all control gone, all calculation abandoned. He charged with a roar, arms wide, trying to simply overwhelm her with raw aggression. And Elena finally acted. She stepped into his charge instead of away, used his momentum. Her elbow came up and caught him in the solar plexus. Not hard enough to cause real damage, but hard enough to empty his lungs. As he doubled over, gasping, she guided him down with pressure points, turning his own force against him. And suddenly Commander Victor Hale, decorated Delta Force veteran, 20-year military career, feared and respected throughout the special operations community, was on his knees on the warehouse floor, unable to breathe, unable to move, held in place by a woman half his size using one hand. The silence was absolute. "Here's what you need to understand, Commander," Elena said quietly, pitching her voice for him alone. "I could have done this 20 different ways. I could have broken bones, could have put you in the hospital, could have made it ugly and painful in public, but I didn't. Because strength isn't about dominating someone, it's about choosing not to." She released him, stepped back. Hale collapsed completely, still gasping, humiliation and shock warring on his face. "That's the difference between us," Elena continued. "You use power to hurt people. I use it to protect them, even when they don't deserve protection, even when they've spent 3 weeks trying to destroy me." She turned to Thornton. "Sir, my demonstration is complete." Thornton nodded slowly, something like respect in his expression. "Indeed it is, Chief." The operators began moving again, breathing, processing what they just witnessed. Sarah Chen looked at Elena with open admiration, Marcus with shock and understanding, Rodriguez and Patterson with something like awe. Hale remained on the ground, broken in a way that had nothing to do with physical injury. "Commander Hale," Thornton's voice cut through the aftermath, "you will report to my office in 1 hour. Bring your attorney if you have one. This investigation is officially underway." Hale didn't respond, couldn't, just knelt there staring at nothing. Elena addressed the room. "The rest of you, none of this reflects on you. You didn't create this culture, you survived it. The question now is what you do next, whether you perpetuate it or change it? Marcus spoke first. What happens to the unit? That depends, Thornton looked around at the assembled operators, on whether you're willing to hold each other accountable, to demand better leadership, to create an environment where excellence isn't confused with cruelty. And if we are, Sarah asked, then you rebuild, stronger, better, actually elite, not just pretending to be. Elena walked toward the warehouse exit, stopped, looked back. Commander Hale is right about one thing, she said. This military needs to maintain high standards. Real standards, not the fake ones where being big and loud and intimidating counts as leadership. Real standards where skill matters, where character matters, where treating people with basic human dignity doesn't make you weak, it makes you professional. She let that hang for a moment. You're all good operators, capable, trained, but capability without ethics is just potential for harm. Remember that. Then she walked out into the Nevada sunlight, leaving behind a warehouse full of operators who would never forget what they'd witnessed. Behind her, Hale finally managed to stand. His legs shook. His face was ashen. 20 years of authority, of respect, of fear-based leadership. All of it crumbled in less than 3 minutes. Thornton approached him. Commander, I need your sidearm and credentials. You're suspended pending investigation. Hale unbuckled his weapon belt with trembling hands, handed it over. When he spoke, his voice came out hoarse. She destroyed me. No, Thornton corrected. You destroyed yourself. She just made it visible. The base commander's office 20 minutes later. Brigadier General Paul Hendricks sat behind his desk, fingers steepled, face unreadable. Elena stood at attention. Colonel Thornton leaned against the wall. Between them, a recording device captured every word. Chief Reyes, Hendricks began, I've read your preliminary report. Before we proceed with formal proceedings against Commander Hale, I need to understand something. Why didn't you intervene sooner? You documented 3 weeks of behavior that clearly violated multiple regulations. Why wait until it escalated to a dangerous live-fire scenario? Elena met his gaze. Because, sir, I needed to see the full pattern. One incident can be explained away, justified, rationalized. But 3 weeks of consistent behavior? That reveals character. That shows what someone does when they think they have total control. Even if it puts you at risk? I'm trained for risk, General. That's what I do. Hendricks leaned back. The DIA requested this evaluation because of complaints. Anonymous reports from former unit members. Claims of toxic leadership, abuse of authority, retaliation against anyone who questioned procedures. But complaints alone aren't enough. We needed proof. And now you have it, Thornton said. Do we? Hendricks looked at Elena. Commander Hale is already claiming entrapment. His attorney is arguing that you deliberately provoked him, that your undercover status invalidates any evidence gathered, that this whole operation was designed to destroy a decorated officer's career for political reasons. Elena's jaw tightened slightly. With respect, General, my identity doesn't change his actions. Whether I was support staff or SEAL Team 6, he chose to harass, isolate, and endanger someone he perceived as weak. That's the point. He didn't abuse authority in spite of who he thought I was. He abused it because of who he thought I was. His attorney will argue you manipulated situations to get desired responses. I existed, sir. That's all. Everything else was his choice. Hendricks pulled up a file on his computer. I'm looking at Hale's record. 20 years of exemplary service, multiple commendations, citations for valor, 3 successful deployments. By every measurable standard, he's been an asset to this military. Until he wasn't, Elena said quietly. Elaborate. Sir, I've read the same file. And yes, Commander Hale has an impressive record. But somewhere along the way, he confused results with righteousness. Started believing his own authority made him infallible, that his way was the only way. And anyone who challenged that, questioned it, even respectfully, became a threat to eliminate. That's a harsh assessment. It's an accurate one. General, I've served under genuinely great leaders. Officers who demanded excellence without demanding obedience. Who built teams through respect, not fear. Who understood that real strength comes from lifting people up, not breaking them down. She paused. Commander Hale isn't a leader. He's a dictator with a uniform. Thornton added, General, we have documented evidence of at least 15 separate incidents over the past 3 weeks. Modified training protocols without authorization, public humiliation, isolation tactics designed to force resignation, and today's live fire exercise where he deliberately created a friendly fire scenario that violated basic safety standards. He claims that was tactical training, preparing operators for chaos. It was ego, Elena countered. He was trying to make me fail publicly, trying to prove I didn't belong. And when that didn't work, when I kept following proper procedures despite his interference, he escalated to creating actual danger. Hendricks closed the file, stared at Elena for a long moment. Off the record, Chief, what do you want to happen here? The question caught her off guard. Sir, you've exposed Hale, humiliated him in front of his unit, made your point. His career is effectively over regardless of the investigation's outcome. So what are you really after? Justice? Revenge? Career advancement? Elena took a breath. I want accountability, General, not just for Commander Hale, but for the system that enabled him, that let him operate like this for years without meaningful oversight, that prioritized his results over his methods, that ignored complaints because it was easier than confronting a decorated officer. You're saying we failed. I'm saying we all failed, sir, myself included, because I guarantee there were signs before this, red flags, moments where someone should have stepped in and didn't. And now we have a unit full of operators who learned that cruelty passes for leadership, who saw abuse and stayed silent because speaking up meant becoming the next target. Hendricks stood, walked to the window, silent for several beats. Then, what would you recommend, as someone who just spent 3 weeks embedded in that culture? Strip Hale of command immediately, non-negotiable. Then bring in outside leadership, someone with no connection to the existing culture. Institute anonymous reporting systems with actual protections. Mandatory leadership training that focuses on ethics, not just tactics. And most importantly, Elena's voice hardened. Make it clear that results don't excuse misconduct, that being good at your job doesn't give you permission to destroy people. Thornton spoke up. The DIA recommends disbanding the unit entirely, starting fresh with new personnel. No, Elena shook her head. That punishes the victims, not the perpetrator. Those operators didn't create this culture. They survived it. Some of them even tried to resist it quietly. Breaking up the unit sends the message that we blame them for their commander's failures. Then what? Hendricks turned back to face her. Reform it. Rehabilitate it. Show them what real leadership looks like. Give them the chance to build something better. And who would lead that effort? Hendricks asked, though his expression suggested he already knew the answer. Elena held his gaze. Sir, I'm due to rotate back to my regular unit in 2 weeks. I'm aware. I'm also aware that I have discretion to extend assignments when operationally necessary. He paused. How would you feel about staying, taking a leadership role in rebuilding this unit? The offer hung in the air. Elena processed it, the implications, the challenges, the opportunity. On one condition, she said finally, which is transparency. No more undercover, no more tests. I work with them openly, honestly. They know exactly who I am and what I'm there to do. Trust has to be rebuilt on truth. Hendricks considered this, looked at Thornton. Some unspoken communication passed between them. Approved, Hendricks said. You'll be promoted to senior chief and assigned as acting unit commander pending permanent replacement. Your mandate, rebuild the culture, maintain operational readiness, and prepare a comprehensive report on systematic leadership failures that enabled this situation. Elena snapped to attention. Yes, sir. Dismissed. Report back tomorrow at 0800 for formal briefing. Elena saluted, turned to leave, reached the door before Hendricks spoke again. Chief Reyes, one more thing. She turned back. Sir? That demonstration in the warehouse, taking Hale down without hurting him, that took extraordinary restraint. Thank you, sir. Don't mistake my compliment for approval. You put yourself in an unnecessary risk situation. What if he'd been armed? What if he'd completely lost control? Elena's expression didn't change. Then I would have adapted, sir. That's what I do. After she left, Thornton moved to stand beside Hendricks. She's remarkable. She's also a powder keg, Hendricks said quietly. Brilliant, capable, and carrying enough anger at the system to be dangerous. You think assigning her to rebuild the unit is a mistake? I think it's the only option that might actually work. But we need to watch her carefully. Make sure she's building leaders, not revolutionaries. Thornton smiled slightly. Sometimes a line between those two is pretty thin, General. That's what worries me. 3 hours later, the unit assembled in the main briefing room. All 12 operators, minus Hale. Elena entered last, no longer wearing support staff insignia. Her uniform now displayed her actual rank. Senior Chief Petty Officer. Seal trident clearly visible. The transformation was complete. No more hiding. Marcus Webb stood as she entered. Senior Chief. The others followed suit. Respect, recognition. Some of it genuine, some of it uncertain. All of it necessary. Sit, Elena commanded. They sat. I know you have questions. I'm going to answer them. But first, I need to address something directly. She looked around the room. Some of you are angry, feel betrayed, think I lied to you for 3 weeks. That's valid. I did lie. I pretended to be something I wasn't. I let you believe I was weak, incompetent, out of place. Rodriguez spoke up. Why? Why put yourself through that? Because I needed to see the truth, not the performance people put on when they know they're being evaluated, the reality of what happens when authority goes unchecked. Sarah Chen leaned forward. And what truth did you find, Senior Chief? Elena met her eyes. That this unit has extraordinary potential being wasted on toxic leadership. That you're all capable operators being held back by a culture of fear. That some of you tried to resist, quietly, carefully, but didn't have the power or protection to make real change. Patterson shifted uncomfortably. You're talking about Hale like he's some kind of monster, but he trained us, made us better. Without him, half of us wouldn't be as sharp as we are. That's true, Elena acknowledged. Commander Hale is tactically brilliant. His training methods produce results. But here's the question you need to ask yourself. At what cost? How many good operators has he driven out? How many people with valuable skills and perspectives left because they couldn't endure his abuse? How much potential has been wasted because he couldn't separate discipline from cruelty? The room fell silent. Several operators looked down, others at each other. Marcus finally spoke. Senior Chief, what happens now? To the unit, to us. That depends on you. General Hendricks is considering disbanding the unit entirely, starting fresh with new personnel, new leadership, new culture. The only reason he hasn't already done it is because I argued against it. Why would you do that? Someone asked from the back. Because you deserve better. You didn't create this mess. You inherited it. And breaking you up punishes the wrong people. Elena's voice carried absolute conviction. But I need to know if you're willing to do the hard work of changing, of building something better, of holding each other accountable in ways that actually matter. Rodriguez stood. Senior Chief, I have to ask, that thing with Hale in the warehouse, you could have hurt him badly, could have made him look even worse. Why didn't you? Elena turned to face him fully. Because revenge isn't justice. because humiliation isn't accountability, because the point wasn't to destroy him, it was to stop him. There's a difference. Some people might say he deserved to be destroyed after what he did to you. Maybe, but I'm not interested in what people deserve. I'm interested in what actually makes things better. Destroying Hale might feel good in the moment, but it doesn't fix the system that enabled him, doesn't change the culture that tolerated him, doesn't teach anyone anything except that power still wins. It just changed hands. Sarah stood now too. So what's the alternative? We all sit around singing Kumbaya and pretend the last 3 years didn't happen? No, we acknowledge what happened, name it, own it, and then we make conscious choices about who we want to be going forward. Elena's gaze swept the room. Some of you participated in Hale's abuse, maybe not directly, but through silence, through looking the other way when someone got targeted, through laughing at jokes that weren't funny, just cruel. That's on you, and you need to reckon with that. The temperature in the room dropped. Several operators shifted uncomfortably. Others of you tried to resist, small ways, quiet ways, offering support to targets when Hale wasn't looking, questioning orders that didn't make sense, taking heat to protect teammates. That matters. That shows character. Marcus met her eyes. And which category do I fall into, Senior Chief? That's not for me to judge. That's for you to figure out yourself, and then decide who you want to be going forward. A younger operator named Thompson spoke up hesitantly. Senior Chief, I need to say something. Elena nodded. Go ahead. Last year there was another officer, Lieutenant Morrison, really sharp, good tactical mind, but he questioned one of Hale's procedures, thought there was a safer way to run an exercise. Thompson's voice shook slightly. Hale destroyed him, made his life hell for 2 months until Morrison requested a transfer. And I didn't say anything, didn't stand up for him, just watched it happen and told myself it wasn't my problem. The confession hung heavy. I'm not proud of it, Thompson continued. I've thought about it a lot, wondered if I could have made a difference. Probably couldn't have, but I should have tried. Elena nodded slowly. Thank you for that honesty. That's where change starts, not with grand gestures, but with acknowledging hard truths. Rodriguez stood again. I participated, Senior Chief. I laughed at Hale's jokes about you, made comments about you not belonging. I didn't think it was harmful at the time, just normal razzing. But looking back, he shook his head. It was part of the culture of cruelty, and I contributed to it. One by one, others began speaking up, confessing small cruelties, moments of cowardice, times they chose comfort over courage. The room became a reluctant confession, years of buried guilt rising to the surface. Sarah Chen was one of the last to speak. I knew something was wrong, saw patterns that didn't make sense. Your file being sanitized, the way you observed everything. I suspected you were more than you appeared, but I didn't help you, didn't warn you about Hale's tactics, didn't intervene when he escalated. I told myself it wasn't my place, that you were an adult who could handle yourself. You were right, Elena said. I could handle myself, but that's not the point. The point is you recognized abuse and chose not to act. That's the culture we're trying to change. So what do? Marcus asked. How do we actually fix this? We start with 3 principles, Elena said. First, accountability over loyalty. We don't protect people just because they're on our team. We hold each other to actual standards, not tribal allegiance. Second, transparency over hierarchy. Rank doesn't make you infallible. Questions aren't disrespect, they're due diligence. Third, growth over perfection. We're going to screw up, make mistakes, revert to old patterns. That's human. What matters is recognizing it and correcting course. Patterson raised his hand. Senior Chief, that all sounds great in theory, but in practice? How do we actually operationalize that? Especially when we're deployed, under stress, making life or death decisions. That's the hardest part, Elena admitted, because it requires constant vigilance, constant self-examination. It's much easier to fall back on old habits, bark orders, demand obedience, crush dissent. But that's not leadership. That's just fear wearing a uniform. She pulled up a presentation on the screen. Over the next 6 weeks, we're implementing a complete culture overhaul. Anonymous feedback systems with real protections. Regular leadership assessments by subordinates. Third-party mediators for conflict resolution. Training focused on ethical decision-making under pressure. And most importantly, consequences that actually matter. No more protecting people because they get results. Results achieved through abuse aren't worth having. The room absorbed this. Some faces showed relief, others skepticism. A few looked openly hostile. I know some of you think this is soft, weak, that we're lowering standards to accommodate feelings. Elena's voice hardened. You're wrong. We're raising standards because real elite performance requires psychological safety, requires trust, requires knowing your teammates have your back without conditions. Fear-based motivation works short-term, but it breaks people long-term, destroys teams, creates operators who are technically proficient but ethically compromised. Marcus stood. Senior Chief, I'm in. Whatever you need, however I can help. I'm committed to making this work. Sarah stood next. Same here. Then Rodriguez, Patterson, Thompson. One by one, the operators rose. Not all of them. 3 stayed seated, arms crossed, unconvinced. Elena addressed those 3 directly. I'm not going to force you to buy in. If you want to transfer out, I'll support that request. No questions, no retaliation, clean record. But if you stay, you're agreeing to these principles. You don't get to sit on the fence. One of the 3, a veteran named Collins, spoke up. Senior Chief, I respect what you're trying to do, but I've been in this military for 15 years, seen a dozen culture change initiatives come and go. They all sound good in PowerPoint presentations. They all fall apart when bullets start flying. Because when shit gets real, people revert to instinct. And instinct is built on habit, and our habits were formed under Hale's leadership. You're absolutely right, Elena said, surprising him. Change is hard, especially changing ingrained behaviors under stress. That's why we're not just talking about it, we're training for it. Deliberately, repeatedly. Building new instincts, new habits, new default responses. With all due respect, Senior Chief, you're asking us to unlearn years of conditioning in weeks. No, I'm asking you to start. To commit to the process, knowing it will take time, knowing there will be setbacks, but choosing to try anyway. Collins studied her, then slowly stood. All right, I'm in. But if this falls apart, if it becomes just another bullshit initiative that gets abandoned when it becomes inconvenient, I'm out. Fair enough, Elena agreed. The other 2 holdouts remained seated. Elena nodded to them. Submit transfer requests by end of day tomorrow. I'll expedite them. No hard feelings. They left without a word. After they were gone, Marcus approached Elena. Senior Chief, can I ask you something personal? Go ahead. During those 3 weeks, when Hale was putting you through hell, when we were all treating you like you didn't belong, did you ever want to quit? Just say screw it and reveal who you really were? Elena considered the question. Every single day. But you didn't. No. Why? Because the mission mattered more than my comfort. Because proving a point required enduring the process. Because real change requires real sacrifice. She paused. And because I knew if I quit, Hale would see it as validation, proof that his methods worked, that breaking people was justified. I couldn't give him that. Sarah joined them. Senior Chief, about tomorrow's briefing with General Hendricks, what do you need from us? Honesty. Whatever comes out of the investigation, whatever evidence surfaces, I need you to tell the truth. All of it. Even the parts that make you look bad. Even the parts that implicate friends. Because if we're going to rebuild trust, we need foundation of truth. And if the truth destroys careers, Sarah asked quietly, if it exposes good people who made bad choices, then those are the consequences, Elena said firmly. Accountability isn't selective. We don't get to protect some people while condemning others based on personal relationships. Everyone faces the same standard. Marcus looked troubled. That's going to be hard for people to accept. I know, but it's necessary. The three of them stood in silence for a moment. Then Sarah said, Senior Chief, I need to tell you something about Lieutenant Morrison, the one Thompson mentioned. Elena waited. After Morrison left, he filed a formal complaint, detailed documentation of Hale's abuse. It went up the chain, and it got buried, dismissed as personality conflict. Morrison's career never recovered. He left the military 6 months later. Who buried it? Elena asked, though her tone suggested she already suspected. Colonel Bradshaw. He was base commander at the time. He's retired now, but... Sarah hesitated. He and Hale were close, academy classmates. Bradshaw protected him. Elena's jaw tightened. That's in your after-action report? No, I was afraid to include it. Thought it might look like I was trying to deflect blame onto someone who couldn't defend themselves. Include it now, tonight. Full details. I want names, dates, specifics. Sarah nodded, started to leave, then turned back. Senior Chief, thank you for doing what the rest of us should have done years ago. After everyone left, Elena stood alone in the briefing room, the weight of what she'd taken on settling over her shoulders. Rebuilding a broken culture, holding people accountable, creating something better from wreckage. Her phone buzzed. Text from Colonel Thornton. Hale's attorney is filing for immediate reinstatement, claims lack of due process. Hearing scheduled for tomorrow, 1400 hours. Thought you should know. Elena stared at the message. Of course, Hale was fighting back. Men like him always did. They never went quietly, never accepted responsibility, always found ways to spin themselves as victims. She typed back, Will he be there? At the hearing? Yes, full dress uniform. Multiple character witnesses lined up. He's planning to make this a spectacle. Elena smiled grimly. Good, let him. Because this time, when Hale tried to dominate through intimidation and performance, he wouldn't be facing a quiet support officer who couldn't fight back. He'd be facing Senior Chief Elena Reyes, SEAL Team 6, a woman who'd already proven she could take him down without breaking a sweat. And more importantly, he'd be facing a room full of operators who'd finally found their voices, who'd started telling truths they'd buried for years, who'd chosen accountability over comfort. Tomorrow's hearing wasn't just about Hale's career. It was about whether the system would protect abusers or empower victims, whether results excused misconduct, whether change was actually possible. Elena walked out of the briefing room into the desert night. Somewhere in the distance she could hear voices, operators talking, debating, processing, the beginning of something new, or maybe just the death throes of something old. Either way, tomorrow would tell the story. Morning came hard and fast. Elena stood in her quarters at 0530, staring at her dress uniform laid out on the bed. Full ribbons, trident, every piece of her real identity on display. No more hiding, no more pretending. Someone knocked. She opened the door to find Marcus, Sarah, Rodriguez, and Patterson standing there, all in dress uniforms, all looking determined. Senior Chief, Marcus said, we're testifying today, at the hearing. Elena shook her head. You don't have to do that. This isn't your fight. Yes, it is. Sarah stepped forward. It became our fight the moment we chose silence over action. The moment we let Hale's behavior slide because it was easier than confronting it. Rodriguez nodded. Besides, you took 3 weeks of hell for us. Least we can do is spend a few hours telling the truth. Hale's attorney will destroy you, Elena warned. Character assassination. questioning your motives, making you look like traitors to your commander. Let him try, Patterson said quietly. I'm done being afraid. Elena studied their faces, saw genuine conviction, genuine courage. All right, but we need to coordinate. His attorney will try to pick us apart individually. We need to present a unified front. They spent the next hour going over testimony, facts, timeline, specific incidents. Elena drilled them like a prosecutor preparing witnesses. Marcus, when you testify about the modified obstacle course, stick to exact numbers, times, safety violations. Don't speculate on Hale's motives. Got it. Sarah, your testimony about the buried complaint is explosive. They're going to come at you hard. Claim you're holding a grudge, making things up to advance your career. I have documentation, Sarah said. Morrison sent me copies of his complaint before he left. I've kept them all this time. Elena's eyebrows rose. You've had that evidence for over a year? Sarah's face showed shame. I was scared, thought if I came forward, I'd be next. So I kept it. Insurance maybe, or cowardice, probably both. Doesn't matter now, Elena said firmly. What matters is you're bringing it forward. That takes courage. A young operator named Chen appeared at the door. Senior Chief, there's someone here to see you. Says it's urgent. Elena followed him out. In the hallway stood a man in his early 50s, civilian clothes, nervous energy radiating from every movement. Chief Reyes, I'm David Morrison, Lieutenant David Morrison, former member of this unit. The room went absolutely silent. Morrison continued, voice shaking slightly. I heard about the hearing today, about Commander Hale facing investigation. I need to testify. Elena gestured him inside. How did you hear about this? Military networks talk, Chief. Word got out that someone finally stood up to Hale, that his authority was being challenged. I had to come. His hands clenched. I have to tell my story, even if it's too late, even if it doesn't matter anymore. It matters, Sarah said quietly. Lieutenant, I'm sorry. I should have spoken up for you, should have backed your complaint. Morrison looked at her. Recognition dawned. Chen? Lieutenant Chen? You're still here? Barely, but yes. Then you saw what he did. I saw everything, and I did nothing. Sarah's voice broke. I'm testifying today, finally telling the truth I should have told a year ago. Morrison sank into a chair. He destroyed my career. After I filed that complaint and Colonel Bradshaw buried it, Hale made sure I'd never work in special operations again. Blacklisted me, told everyone I was unstable, couldn't handle pressure. By the time I left the military, my reputation was demolished. We're going to fix that, Elena said with absolute certainty. Today's hearing isn't just about Hale, it's about the system that enabled him. And Colonel Bradshaw's name is going in the official record. Morrison looked up at her. You're the one who infiltrated, posed as support staff. That's right. Why? Why put yourself through that? Because men like Hale need to be stopped, and the only way to stop them is to expose them, to make their behavior visible, undeniable. Morrison's eyes filled with tears he fought to control. Thank you. You did what I couldn't, what none of us could. You filed a complaint, Elena corrected. You tried through proper channels. The system failed you. That's not your fault. But I gave up, walked away instead of fighting. You survived. That's not nothing. Elena pulled up a chair, sat across from him. Lieutenant, your testimony today will be powerful. Because you're proof this isn't isolated, isn't just one bad incident. It's a pattern, a culture, a systematic failure. The hours before the hearing passed in preparation. More operators came forward wanting to testify, some with direct evidence, others with observations, all of them finally finding courage to speak. By 1300 hours, Elena had 17 potential witnesses, 17 operators and former operators ready to tell their stories. The hearing room at 1400 hours. Formal, cold, military tribunal setup. 3 officers serving as panel judges, 2 colonels and 1 brigadier general. Not Hendricks, he'd recused himself due to prior involvement. These were outside judges, neutral, unknown. Elena entered first with Colonel Thornton. Then the 17 witnesses filed in, taking seats in the gallery. Their presence alone made a statement. Solidarity, unity, collective voice. Then Hale arrived. Full dress uniform, as promised. Every medal, every ribbon, every symbol of his 20-year career on display. His attorney beside him, a sharp-eyed civilian lawyer named Patricia Valdez, reputation for demolishing prosecution cases. Hale's eyes swept the gallery, saw his former subordinates sitting together. His jaw tightened, but his expression remained neutral, controlled. The performance of a man wrongly accused. Behind him, a second wave of people entered. More uniforms, high ranks. Hale had brought his own witnesses. Character references. Elena recognized several. Colonel Bradshaw, despite being retired. Major General Thomas Cross. 3 other decorated officers. This wasn't going to be simple. The panel judge, Brigadier General Sandra Morrison, no relation to David, called the hearing to order. This tribunal will determine if sufficient evidence exists to proceed with formal courts-martial against Commander Victor Hale on charges of abuse of authority, violation of training protocols, creation of hostile work environment, and conduct unbecoming an officer. She looked at both sides. Opening statements. Patricia Valdez stood. Generals, colonels, Commander Hale stands before you today not as a criminal, but as a victim of a politically motivated witch hunt designed to destroy a decorated officer's career. The evidence will show that Chief Reyes conducted an unauthorized undercover operation specifically designed to entrap my client, that she manipulated situations, provoked responses, and created conflict where none existed. Commander Hale did nothing wrong. He maintained standards. He demanded excellence. And for that, he's being persecuted. She paused for effect. The real question this tribunal must answer: when did demanding excellence become abuse? When did maintaining standards become grounds for destruction? When did we decide that feelings matter more than operational readiness? Powerful opening. Elena had to admit that. Valdez was good. Colonel Thornton stood for the prosecution. The evidence will show a clear pattern of abuse spanning multiple years. Not just with Chief Reyes, but with Lieutenant Morrison, with several other unit members who were driven out or silenced. Commander Hale didn't maintain standards. He weaponized them, used his authority to target anyone who questioned him, challenged him, or failed to conform to his narrow definition of what an operator should be. This isn't about excellence, it's about accountability. General Morrison nodded. Call your first witness. Thornton looked at Elena. She stood. The prosecution calls Lieutenant David Morrison. The shock rippled through Hale's side of the room. Hale himself went pale. He leaned over to whisper urgently to Valdez. Morrison walked to the witness stand, sworn in, sat down. Lieutenant Morrison, Thornton began, please describe your experience serving under Commander Hale. Morrison took a breath. I was assigned to the unit 3 years ago. Initially, everything seemed normal. Challenging training, high standards, what you'd expect from elite special operations. But over time, I noticed patterns. Commander Hale didn't just demand excellence, he demanded obedience. Absolute, unquestioning obedience. Can you provide a specific example? 6 months into my assignment, we were planning an operation. Commander Hale proposed an infiltration route that I believe was unnecessarily risky. I suggested an alternative, quieter approach, better security. I presented my analysis respectfully, backed it with intelligence and tactical assessment. How did Commander Hale respond? Morrison's voice hardened. He told me I was questioning his authority, that I was showing weakness, that if I couldn't trust his leadership, I didn't belong in special operations. Then he assigned me to 3 weeks of remedial training, solo, no team support, exercises designed not to improve my skills, but to break my will. Did you file a complaint? Yes, a formal written complaint documenting the retaliation and hostile treatment. I submitted it through proper channels. What happened to that complaint? Colonel Bradshaw dismissed it, said it was a personality conflict, suggested I request a transfer if I was unhappy. Thornton pulled out documents. I'm submitting as evidence the original complaint Lieutenant Morrison filed, including detailed documentation of abuse, retaliation, and hostile work environment. Also submitting the dismissal memo from Colonel Bradshaw. Note the dismissal occurred 48 hours after receipt. No investigation, no interviews with witnesses, just immediate dismissal. The panel judges reviewed the documents. Their expressions darkened. Valdez stood. Objection. Lieutenant Morrison is a disgruntled former employee with obvious bias and motivation to lie. He has documentation, Thornton countered, contemporaneous records, corroborating witnesses. This isn't speculation, it's evidence. General Morrison looked at Morrison. Lieutenant, after your complaint was dismissed and you left the unit, what happened to your career? Morrison's voice shook. It ended. I couldn't get assigned to any other special operations unit. My performance evaluations suddenly became mediocre, despite years of excellent ratings. I was effectively blacklisted. I left the military 8 months later. Do you have evidence of this blacklisting? I have emails from 3 separate commanders stating they'd been advised that I was unsuitable for special operations work. When I asked who advised them, they wouldn't say. But the timing was clear. After I filed the complaint against Commander Hale, my career was systematically destroyed. Hale leaned forward, whispered urgently to Valdez again. She stood. Your Honor, my client denies any involvement in Lieutenant Morrison's career difficulties. Correlation isn't causation. Then let's establish causation, Thornton said. He pulled up more documents. I'm submitting phone records showing 15 calls between Commander Hale and various unit commanders during the 2 months after Lieutenant Morrison filed his complaint. I'm also submitting sworn testimony from Captain James Wheeler, who received one of those calls. Captain Wheeler states that Commander Hale specifically told him Morrison was emotionally unstable and unsuitable for high-stress operations. The room erupted. Hale shot to his feet. That's a lie. Wheeler is making that up. Commander Hale, sit down, General Morrison ordered sharply. Valdez put a hand on Hale's arm, forced him back into his seat. But the damage was done. The perfect composure had cracked. Thornton continued methodically. Captain Wheeler's testimony is corroborated by 2 other officers who received similar calls from Commander Hale. All 3 independently described the same pattern. Hale contacting them, providing negative information about Morrison, discouraging them from accepting him into their units. Morrison's hands gripped the witness stand. He destroyed me, professionally, personally, and no one stopped him. Thornton looked at the panel. No further questions. Valdez approached for cross-examination. Lieutenant Morrison, isn't it true that you had performance issues beyond your conflict with Commander Hale? No. Isn't it true that multiple unit members found you difficult to work with? That's not true. So everyone who had problems with you was lying? Morrison met her eyes. Commander Hale was good at turning people against anyone he targeted. That was part of his method. Isolate the victim, make them seem like the problem. By the time I left, yes, some unit members believed I was difficult, because that's what Hale told them. That's what he made them believe. Valdez pressed harder. You're claiming a vast conspiracy where I'm claiming one man with authority used that authority to destroy someone who questioned him, Morrison interrupted. That's not a conspiracy. That's abuse. Valdez tried several more angles but couldn't shake Morrison's testimony. Finally, she sat down, looking frustrated. "Next witness," General Morrison ordered. Thornton called Sarah Chen. Sarah took the stand, produced her documentation, the buried complaint, the dismissal memo, her own observations over the past 3 years. "Lieutenant Chen, you witnessed Lieutenant Morrison's treatment firsthand?" "Yes, I saw Commander Hale systematically target him, saw him turn other operators against Morrison, saw him create situations designed to make Morrison fail." "Why didn't you speak up at the time?" Sarah's voice dropped. "Because I was afraid. I saw what happened to people who challenged Commander Hale. They got destroyed, professionally, sometimes personally, and I chose my career over doing the right thing." She looked directly at Morrison in the gallery. "I'm sorry. I should have supported you, should have corroborated your complaint, should have stood up when it mattered." The raw honesty silenced the room. Thornton let that moment breathe. Then, "Lieutenant Chen, in your professional opinion as Unit Intelligence Officer, did Commander Hale's behavior create operational security risks?" "Absolutely. Fear-based leadership destroys trust, destroys psychological safety. Operators became more concerned with avoiding Hale's wrath than with mission success. People stopped asking questions, stopped raising concerns, stopped providing honest assessments because they knew any dissent would be punished. That's operationally dangerous." Valdez cross-examined, but Sarah held firm, refused to back down, refused to minimize what she'd witnessed. Marcus testified next, then Rodriguez, then Patterson. One by one, Elena's witnesses took the stand, each adding pieces to the puzzle, each confirming the pattern. By 1700 hours, the weight of testimony was overwhelming. 17 voices all describing the same culture, the same tactics, the same systematic abuse. Then Valdez called her character witnesses. Colonel Bradshaw took the stand. "Commander Hale is one of the finest officers I've ever served with. Tactically brilliant, utterly dedicated. Yes, he demands high standards. Yes, he pushes people. But that's what creates excellence." "Colonel Bradshaw," Valdez asked, "when Lieutenant Morrison filed his complaint, did you conduct a thorough investigation?" "I reviewed the complaint and determined it lacked merit. Personality conflicts happen. Not every disagreement rises to the level of abuse." Thornton stood for cross-examination. "Colonel, how many hours did you spend investigating Lieutenant Morrison's complaint?" Bradshaw hesitated. "I don't recall exactly." "Your dismissal memo is dated 2 days after receipt. Did you interview witnesses?" I spoke with Commander Hale." "Did you speak with Lieutenant Morrison?" Silence. "Did you speak with any unit members who might corroborate Morrison's claims?" More silence. "So your thorough investigation consisted solely of asking the accused if he was guilty? And when he said no, you accepted that and dismissed the complaint?" Bradshaw's face reddened. "I used my judgment based on years of experience." "Or you used your friendship with Commander Hale to bury a legitimate complaint." Thornton pulled out more documents. "Colonel Bradshaw, I'm submitting phone records showing you and Commander Hale spoke 17 times in the week after Morrison filed his complaint, including a 2-hour dinner at an off-base restaurant. That seems like more than a professional relationship." "Victor Hale and I were academy classmates. We're friends. That doesn't mean..." "It means you had a conflict of interest. You should have recused yourself from investigating a complaint against your friend. Instead, you buried it." The panel judges leaned forward, clearly troubled. Bradshaw tried to recover. "Commander Hale is a good man who..." "Commander Hale is your friend who you protected at the expense of a junior officer's career and well-being." Thornton's voice cut like steel. "That's not leadership, Colonel. That's corruption." The word hung in the air. Corruption. Not just abuse, not just misconduct, systemic corruption that protected abusers and punished victims. Major General Cross testified next, praising Hale's tactical brilliance. Then two other officers, all singing the same song. Hale was demanding but effective, tough but necessary, misunderstood but essential. Then Thornton called his final witness. The prosecution calls Senior Chief Elena Reyes. Elena took the stand, every eye in the room fixed on her. Thornton began gently. Chief Reyes, please describe your assignment to Commander Hale's unit. Elena detailed the undercover operation, the 3 weeks of abuse, the harassment, isolation, impossible scenarios. At any point during those 3 weeks, did Commander Hale know your true identity? No, he believed I was support staff, someone without power, without protection, someone he could target with impunity. Did he target you? From day one, he publicly humiliated me, assigned me unauthorized training designed to break me physically, created impossible scenarios to force my failure, isolated me from other unit members, made it clear he wanted me gone. Why didn't you reveal your identity and stop it? Because I needed to see the truth, needed to document exactly how Commander Hale treated someone he perceived as powerless. That's where someone's real character shows, how they treat people who can't fight back. Valdez objected. Speculation. Chief Reyes is attributing motives. I'm describing actions, Elena corrected. Commander Hale's actions were clear, documented, witnessed by multiple operators. Thornton continued. Chief Reyes, during your time in special operations, how many commanders have you served under? 12. How many of them behaved like Commander Hale? None, not even close. So his behavior wasn't typical? Wasn't just standard tough leadership? Absolutely not. Real leaders demand excellence while maintaining dignity. They push people to grow, not break. Commander Hale didn't train operators, he traumatized them. Valdez stood for cross-examination. This was the moment she'd been waiting for. Chief Reyes, isn't it true that you deliberately provoked Commander Hale? No, I existed. That was my provocation. You questioned his authority repeatedly. I followed regulations. When he violated protocols, I cited them. That's not provocation, that's professionalism. You refused direct orders. I refused one order, to fire on friendly forces during a training exercise with inadequate safety protocols. That order violated basic rules of engagement. Valdez pressed harder. But you did refuse, in front of the entire unit, undermining his authority in the middle of a combat simulation. I prioritized operator safety over ego. That's what leaders do. Or maybe you wanted to humiliate him, to create this exact situation where his career would be destroyed. Elena leaned forward. Miss Valdez, if I wanted to humiliate Commander Hale, I could have done it a dozen different ways. I could have revealed my identity on day one and made him look foolish. I could have responded to his abuse with force. I could have destroyed him physically and professionally before he even knew what was happening. She paused. But I didn't, because this isn't about humiliation. It's about accountability. Accountability? You conducted an undercover operation specifically designed to entrap my client. I conducted an evaluation operation to assess leadership integrity. Your client's behavior entrapped himself. The exchange continued, Valdez attacking from every angle. But Elena remained calm, unshakable. Every answer measured, every response backed by evidence. Finally, exhausted, Valdez sat down. General Morrison looked at both sides. Closing arguments tomorrow at 0900. This tribunal is adjourned. As people filed out, Hale caught Elena in the hallway. His character witnesses had already left. He stood alone. You destroyed me, he said quietly. Elena stopped, turned to face him. No, Commander, you destroyed yourself. I just made it visible. My career is over. 20 years. Gone. Lieutenant Morrison's career was over at 26 years old, because of you. How many others? How many careers did you destroy because people didn't meet your arbitrary standards or dared to question you? Hale's hands clenched. I made this military better, stronger. You made it toxic, and tomorrow that toxicity ends." She walked away, leaving Hale standing alone in an empty hallway, finally facing the consequences he'd avoided for so long. The night before closing arguments, Elena couldn't sleep. She sat in her quarters reviewing testimony transcripts, evidence documents, preparing for whatever Valdez might throw at them tomorrow. Around 0200 hours, someone knocked. Marcus stood there, looking equally sleepless. "Senior Chief, can we talk?" Elena stepped aside. He entered, paced for a moment before speaking. "I've been thinking about Lieutenant Morrison, about all the others who came before, about how many people we failed." His voice was raw. "And I keep asking myself, if you hadn't shown up, how long would we have let this continue? How many more careers would Hale have destroyed while we just watched? You can't change the past, Marcus, but I can own it. Tomorrow, when they ask for final statements, I want to speak. Not as a witness, as someone who was complicit, who saw wrong, and chose silence." Elena studied him. "That's going to be hard to hear, for you and for everyone else. I know, but it needs to be said. Because if we're really going to rebuild this unit, we need to start with brutal honesty about how we got here." She nodded slowly. "All right, I'll request time for unit testimony during closing." Marcus turned to leave, then stopped. "Senior Chief, when you were going through those 3 weeks, pretending to be someone you weren't, enduring Hale's abuse, did you ever doubt it was worth it?" Elena was quiet for a long moment. "Every single night, I'd lie in bed with rope burns on my hands, bruises on my body, and ask myself if exposing one bad commander was worth the cost, if change was even possible. What kept you going? Remembering that people like Lieutenant Morrison existed, people who tried to do the right thing and got destroyed for it. Knowing that if I quit, their suffering would have been meaningless, that Hale would continue unchecked, that the next person he targeted might not survive it." Marcus's jaw tightened. "We should have been the ones to stop him, not you. But you are stopping him. Now. Today. That's what matters." After Marcus left, Elena tried again to sleep, failed again. By 0500 she gave up, went for a run in the pre-dawn darkness, trying to clear her mind for what was coming. The hearing room at 0900 hours was packed. Word had spread throughout the base. Operators from other units lined the walls. Even some civilian staff showed up, wanting to witness this moment. General Morrison called order. "Closing arguments. Ms. Valdez, you may proceed." Valdez stood, and Elena had to admit, the woman was good. She painted Hale as a dedicated commander whose only crime was demanding excellence in a military that had gone soft. She portrayed Elena as a scheming infiltrator who manipulated situations to achieve predetermined outcomes. She questioned the credibility of witnesses who had personal grievances. She argued that conviction would send a chilling message to all commanders, that maintaining standards would be punished. "This tribunal must ask itself," Valdez concluded, "whether we're going to destroy good officers because they refuse to lower standards, because they demand more from their people than politically correct policies allow." Commander Hale represents everything this military needs: strength, discipline, uncompromising excellence. And you're being asked to sacrifice that on the altar of hurt feelings and bruised egos. Powerful, dangerous, exactly the kind of argument that had protected men like Hale for decades. Colonel Thornton stood for rebuttal. "Ms. Valdez talks about excellence, about standards, about strength, but she's confused those terms with cruelty, abuse, and tyranny. Commander Hale didn't demand excellence. He demanded submission. He didn't maintain standards. He weaponized them against anyone who questioned his authority. The evidence is clear. 17 witnesses, documentation spanning 3 years. A pattern so obvious that the only question is how we allowed it to continue this long." He paused, looked directly at the panel judges. "This tribunal isn't being asked to choose between excellence and weakness. It's being asked to choose between accountability and impunity, between leadership and dictatorship, between the military we claim to be and the military we actually are when no one's watching. General Morrison nodded. Before we deliberate, does anyone else wish to make a statement? Elena stood. Your Honor, I request permission for Captain Marcus Webb to address the tribunal. Morrison looked surprised but nodded. Granted. Marcus walked to the front, no witness stand this time, just him, standing before judges and audience, exposed and vulnerable. My name is Captain Marcus Webb. I've served under Commander Hale for 3 years, and I need to say something that's difficult to admit. He took a breath. I was complicit, not actively abusive, but complicit through silence. I watched Commander Hale target Lieutenant Morrison, watched him destroy that man's career, and I did nothing. I told myself it wasn't my place to intervene, that Morrison must have done something to deserve it, that Hale knew best. The room was utterly silent. Then Chief Reyes arrived, and I watched Hale do it again. Same tactics, same cruelty, same systematic destruction of someone he perceived as weak. And again, I did nothing. I warned her privately, felt sorry for her, but I didn't stand up, didn't confront Hale, didn't risk my own position to protect someone being abused. Marcus's voice strengthened. I'm not saying this to excuse myself. I'm saying it because I represent the real problem. Not Commander Hale, he's one man. The real problem is the dozens of us who watched his behavior and chose comfort over courage, who knew what was happening and did nothing because speaking up was hard, because we prioritized our careers over someone else's suffering. Several operators in the gallery shifted uncomfortably. Marcus was describing them too. If this tribunal convicts Commander Hale, but doesn't address the culture that enabled him, nothing changes. We'll just replace one toxic leader with another. The cycle continues. But if we acknowledge our collective failure, if we admit that we all bear responsibility for letting this happen, then maybe we can build something better. He looked at Elena. Chief Reyes spent 3 weeks in hell because we failed to do our jobs. She shouldn't have been necessary. We should have stopped Hale years ago. The fact that it took an outside evaluation to expose what we all already knew is our shame to carry. Marcus sat down. The weight of his words hung heavy. Sarah Chen stood next. Permission to speak, Your Honor. Morrison nodded, looking fascinated by this unexpected turn. I'm Lieutenant Sarah Chen. I also need to confess complicity. Her voice was steady, but pained. When Lieutenant Morrison filed his complaint, I had evidence that could have corroborated his claims. Documentation of Hale's pattern of abuse. And I kept silent. I kept that evidence hidden for over a year because I was afraid. She pulled out the documents Morrison had sent her. These are copies of Morrison's original complaint, with my notes, emails showing the pattern of retaliation, witness statements I collected but never submitted. I gathered all this evidence and did nothing with it, because I convinced myself that self-preservation was more important than justice. David Morrison, sitting in the gallery, stared at her with tears streaming down his face. I want to submit this evidence now, Sarah continued, not because it changes the tribunal's decision, you have plenty of evidence already, but because Lieutenant Morrison deserves to know that someone believed him. Someone saw the truth, even if that someone was too cowardly to act on it when it mattered. One by one, other operators stood. Rodriguez confessed to participating in the culture of mockery. Patterson admitted to laughing at cruel jokes. Thompson acknowledged turning a blind eye to abuse. Each confession adding weight. Each admission stripping away the comfortable lie that only Hale was responsible. Finally, when the last operator sat down, General Morrison spoke. This tribunal will now deliberate. We'll reconvene in 1 hour with our decision. The wait was excruciating. Elena stood outside with the 17 witnesses who'd testified. David Morrison approached her, his face still wet with tears. "Thank you," he said simply, "for doing what I couldn't." "You did plenty," Elena replied. "You filed a complaint knowing it could destroy your career. That took courage. It took desperation. You walked into hell voluntarily, stayed there for 3 weeks. That's something else entirely." Sarah joined them. "Lieutenant Morrison, I'm so sorry. I should have—" "Stop." Morrison held up a hand. "I don't need apologies. I need to know it's over, that he can't hurt anyone else." "It's over," Elena said with certainty. "One way or another, Hale's authority ends today." Exactly 1 hour later, they reconvened. General Morrison's face was unreadable as she called order. "This tribunal has reviewed all evidence and testimony. We've deliberated carefully. Our decision is unanimous." She looked directly at Hale. "Commander Victor Hale, we find sufficient evidence to proceed with formal courts-martial on all charges. You are hereby stripped of command effective immediately. You will be confined to base pending trial. Your security clearances are suspended. Your access to personnel records and unit operations is revoked." Hale stood, swaying slightly. Valdez grabbed his arm to steady him. Morrison continued. "Furthermore, this tribunal recommends a full investigation into systemic failures that enabled Commander Hale's behavior, including but not limited to Colonel Bradshaw's dismissal of Lieutenant Morrison's complaint, the absence of meaningful oversight mechanisms, and the culture of silence that allowed abuse to continue unchecked." She paused, looked around the room. "This military prides itself on excellence, on honor, on leadership. But those are just words unless we enforce them consistently, unless we hold everyone, regardless of rank or reputation, to the same standards. Today's decision is not just about one commander. It's about whether we mean what we say when we talk about integrity." Hale finally spoke, voice hoarse. 20 years of service, and this is how it ends." "No, Commander," Morrison corrected. "This is how it should have ended years ago. When you first crossed the line from discipline to abuse. When you first used your authority to punish instead of develop. When you first confused fear with respect. The tragedy isn't that it's ending now, it's that it went on so long." Military police approached to escort Hale out. He shook off their hands. "I can walk." He turned to Elena one last time. "I hope you're proud of yourself, destroying a good officer's career for political points." Elena met his eyes without flinching. "I didn't destroy your career, Commander. I documented it. There's a difference." As Hale was led away, the room erupted. Some operators cheering, others stunned into silence. A few of Hale's supporters leaving in protest, but most stayed, watching, processing, understanding that something fundamental had shifted. General Hendricks entered, having waited outside during the verdict. He approached Elena. "Senior Chief, a word?" They stepped into a private office. Hendricks closed the door. "The unit is yours," he said without preamble. "Effective immediately. Full command authority. Your mandate, rebuild it from the ground up. You have 6 months to show measurable progress in culture change while maintaining operational readiness." Elena absorbed this. "General, I appreciate the confidence, but I need to be clear about something. I'm not interested in revenge. I'm not interested in punishing everyone who served under Hale. What I am interested in is accountability and growth." "Explain." "Some of those operators were complicit, yes, but they've also started the process of acknowledgement, of taking responsibility. I want to work with that, build on it, create an environment where people can admit mistakes and learn from them without fear of career-ending retaliation." Hendricks studied her. "You're talking about forgiveness." "I'm talking about rehabilitation, about second chances for people who genuinely want to change. Punishment might feel satisfying, but it doesn't create better leaders. Growth does. Accountability does. Learning does." That's a generous perspective given what you endured. It's a practical perspective, Elena corrected. I could spend the next 6 months settling scores and destroying everyone who laughed at Hale's jokes or stayed silent during his abuse. But that doesn't serve the mission. It just perpetuates the cycle of fear-based leadership. I'd rather build something new than demolish something old. Hendricks nodded slowly. You're wiser than I expected, Senior Chief. I'm pragmatic, sir. Change requires hope. If people think they'll be punished forever for past mistakes, they'll never take the risk of admitting them. But if they know acknowledgement leads to growth rather than destruction, they'll step forward. 3 days later, Elena stood before the unit for the first official formation under her command. All the operators who'd stayed, all the ones who'd confessed complicity, all the ones who'd chosen growth over comfort. I'm not going to pretend the past didn't happen, Elena began. We all know what this unit was under Commander Hale's leadership. We all know the culture of fear, the abuse of authority, the systematic targeting of anyone who didn't conform. That's our history. We can't erase it. But we can choose what we do with it. She paused, making eye contact with operators across the formation. Some of you participated in that culture. Some stayed silent. Some tried to resist quietly. Different levels of responsibility. But all of you are here now. And that tells me something important. You want to be better. You want to build something different. And I'm going to help you do that. Marcus stepped forward. Senior Chief, some of us have been talking. We want to establish a memorial for Lieutenant Morrison and others who were driven out. A reminder of what happens when good people stay silent. Elena considered this. I appreciate the impulse, but I'd rather create something forward-looking, not just remembering the failures, but committing to the future. What if, instead of a memorial, we create a leadership charter, a public commitment to principles we'll uphold, signed by everyone in this unit, a living document that holds us accountable? Sarah spoke up. What kind of principles? That's for us to decide together, as a unit, as equals. But I'd suggest starting with transparency over hierarchy, accountability over loyalty, growth over perfection, dignity in discipline, strength through respect. The operators murmured approval. Rodriguez raised his hand. Senior Chief, what about Lieutenant Morrison? What happens to him? I've spoken with General Hendricks. We're offering Morrison the opportunity to return to active duty with full restoration of rank and reputation. His record will be corrected to reflect that his departure was due to retaliation, not performance. He'll also receive a formal apology from the military. Will he come back? Someone asked. I don't know, Elena admitted. That's his choice. We destroyed his trust in this institution. Rebuilding that, if it's even possible, will take time, but we owe him the opportunity. Patterson stood. Senior Chief, I have a question, and I need you to be honest with me. Always. Do you trust us? After everything we did or didn't do, can you actually trust this unit to have your back? Elena took a long moment before answering. No, not yet. Trust isn't given, it's earned. But I believe you can earn it. I believe you want to earn it, and I'm willing to give you the chance to prove it. That's all anyone can ask for. The honesty silenced the formation. No false promises, no empty reassurances, just truth. Here's what I expect going forward, Elena continued. Mistakes will happen. People will revert to old patterns occasionally. That's human. What matters is how you respond when called out. Do you get defensive, make excuses, blame others? Or do you acknowledge it, learn from it, and do better next time? That's the difference between growth and stagnation. Over the next 3 months, the transformation was remarkable. Not perfect, there were setbacks, conflicts, moments where old habits surfaced, but the trajectory was clear. Operators started questioning orders respectfully, started offering alternative perspectives, started supporting each other instead of competing destructively. Anonymous feedback scores improved dramatically. Retention rates increased. Most importantly, the culture of fear dissipated. People no longer walked on eggshells, terrified of triggering a commander's wrath. Lieutenant Morrison accepted the offer to return. His first day back, the entire unit formed up to welcome him. No speeches, no grand gestures, just silent acknowledgement that they'd failed him and were committed to doing better. Morrison looked at them, tears in his eyes. "I never thought I'd wear this uniform again. Never thought I'd trust this institution again. I'm not sure I fully do yet, but I'm willing to try." Marcus stepped forward, extended his hand. "We don't deserve a second chance, but we're grateful you're giving us one." Morrison shook his hand, then Sarah's. Then one by one, every operator who'd stayed silent during his ordeal. The courts-martial for Commander Hale concluded 6 weeks after the tribunal. He was found guilty on all charges. Dishonorably discharged, 20 years of service erased in a single verdict. Colonel Bradshaw faced separate proceedings for corruption and dereliction of duty. His retirement benefits were suspended pending investigation. Elena attended Hale's sentencing, not for satisfaction, not for closure, but because she needed to see it through, needed to witness accountability in action. As Hale was led away in handcuffs, he looked at her one last time. "You won. I hope you're happy." Elena held his gaze. "This was never about winning, Commander. It was about stopping you from hurting more people. If that makes me the villain in your story, I can live with that. History will remember me as a warrior destroyed by political correctness. History will remember you as a cautionary tale about what happens when authority goes unchecked, when results excuse misconduct, when ego becomes more important than integrity." Elena's voice was steady, final. "You could have been great, Commander. You had the skills, the knowledge, the experience, but you chose intimidation over inspiration, destruction over development. And now you'll be remembered not for your 20 years of service, but for how you abused every moment of it." She walked away, leaving Hale to face consequences he'd spent a career avoiding. 6 months after taking command, Elena submitted her comprehensive report to General Hendricks. Results were clear. Operational readiness improved 15%. Morale scores tripled. Anonymous complaints dropped to 0. The unit had transformed from a toxic environment into a model of ethical leadership. But the real change wasn't in numbers. It was in conversations. In operators challenging each other respectfully. In leaders accepting criticism without retaliation. In junior members feeling safe to speak up when something wasn't right. One evening, Marcus found Elena in her office, reviewing training protocols. "Senior Chief, I've been thinking about something you said during the tribunal, about the difference between revenge and accountability." Elena looked up. "What about it? You could have destroyed Hale publicly, humiliated him completely, made him suffer the way he made others suffer. But you didn't. Why?" Elena set down her pen. "Because revenge would have made me just like him, would have proven that power justifies cruelty, that strength means domination. I didn't want to replace one tyrant with another. But doesn't he deserve to suffer after everything he did? Maybe, but what I deserve or what he deserves doesn't matter. What matters is building something better. You can't create ethical leadership through unethical means. You can't teach dignity by destroying it. You can't demand respect while showing none." Marcus nodded slowly. "So accountability means holding people responsible while maintaining their humanity?" "Exactly. Hale was held accountable. He lost his career, his reputation, his freedom. Those are consequences. But we didn't torture him, didn't mock him, didn't strip him of basic dignity, because the moment we do that, we become what we fought against." "That's hard," Marcus admitted. "When someone hurts you, you want them to hurt back." "I know, but leadership isn't about easy choices. It's about right ones. And the right choice is to be better than your worst enemy, to prove that strength doesn't require cruelty, that authority doesn't require fear, that real power comes from lifting people up, not tearing them down. Elena stood, looked out at the Nevada desert. Commander Hale taught this unit one lesson, that authority enforced through fear is fragile. It collapses the moment people stop being afraid. But authority earned through respect? That's permanent. That's real. That's worth building. Marcus smiled slightly. You're a hell of a leader, Senior Chief. I'm a work in progress, Captain, just like everyone else. A year after the tribunal, the unit was selected for a critical overseas deployment. High-stakes operation requiring precision, teamwork, and trust. Everything Hale's leadership had destroyed. Everything Elena's leadership had rebuilt. The night before deployment, Elena addressed the unit one final time. Tomorrow we deploy as a team, not as individuals forced together by rank and authority, not as operators terrified of their commander, but as professionals who chose to grow, who acknowledged failures and built something better, who proved that change is possible. She paused, looked at faces that had transformed from fearful to confident. Some people will say we went soft, that focusing on culture and ethics weakens combat effectiveness. But tomorrow will prove them wrong. We'll show that psychological safety enhances performance, that trust enables risk-taking, that respect multiplies strength. We'll demonstrate that the best teams aren't built on fear, they're built on mutual commitment to excellence and integrity. The deployment was flawless. Every operator performed at their highest level. Every decision was questioned and improved through collaborative input. Every challenge was met with creativity and courage. When they returned 6 months later with the mission accomplished and 0 casualties, General Hendricks personally greeted them. Senior Chief Reyes, he said quietly, you've done something I didn't think possible. You've proven that accountability and excellence aren't mutually exclusive, that ethical leadership produces better results than authoritarian control, that change, when done right, makes us stronger. Elena smiled. With respect, General, I didn't prove it. They did. She gestured to her unit. Every operator who chose growth over comfort, who risked vulnerability to acknowledge mistakes, who committed to being better than they were, they're the proof. Years later, the story of Elena Reyes and the Nevada unit became legend in special operations circles. Not because of dramatic combat victories, but because of what they represented. Proof that systems can change, that toxic cultures can be transformed, that accountability matters more than revenge. Lieutenant Morrison eventually became a commander himself, leading with the lessons he'd learned through suffering and redemption. Marcus Webb rose to senior leadership, always remembering that silence is complicity. And Elena? She continued doing what she'd always done, finding broken systems, exposing abuse, holding people accountable while maintaining their dignity, teaching the next generation that real authority isn't enforced through fear, it's earned through character. Because the mission doesn't fail because of weakness, it fails because of ego. It fails because leaders confuse power with permission. It fails because good people stay silent when bad things happen. And the only way to stop that cycle is to choose courage over comfort, accountability over loyalty, and growth over revenge. Real authority isn't enforced, it's earned. And once earned through integrity, respect, and genuine leadership, it becomes unbreakable, not because people fear you, but because they believe in you.